Hi everyone, my name is Mel Boyd and hopefully I am your Thermomix consultant. Thanks for joining me on the video today, and I'm going to go through the unboxing of the new TM6 machines. Hopefully you've purchased and are waiting to do a delivery cooking experience with me. Now when you get the Thermomix delivered, it will come in a large box, and inside that box will be a slightly smaller box, and inside that will be your Thermomix. Now if you keep nothing else from your packaging, please make sure that you keep the molded styrofoam base part. That just makes it easier for when you maybe need to move home and that sort of thing, to transport the Thermomix around. It's got this perfectly molded piece of styrofoam, so make sure you keep that piece. Now, before we go ahead and turn the machine on, we need to make sure that we've situated it in a suitable spot. So you want to look for a place that is flat and level. Make sure you avoid putting it on a flat cooktop if you happen to have a flat hob, just in case it accidentally gets turned on. So we want a nice flat level place, and obviously we're going to need power to it as well. Make sure that your power cord is extended out fully. In behind the machine, you'll see there's a red tab on the back of the machine, on the back of the power cord. Make sure that's pulled all the way out. And then plug the machine in, and that's how you know you're ready to go. So the first thing that we're going to do once we've plugged it in and turned on the power is we're going to go ahead and hit the large silver button, which is called the selector. That's going to power up the machine, and the first time that you do this, it's going to go through a bit of a software load and setup, and that will take a few minutes. But while we're waiting for that to happen, we're going to go ahead and we're going to look at a few other bits and pieces. Now in the box there will be your guide here. Now it does look quite thick, but I don't want you to stress about it because it is just the first part that's in English. Obviously the rest is just replicated in other languages. Now this information has got some really good useful bits and pieces in it. It tells you all about the different pieces that come with it, diagrams, those sorts of things, but that information is also contained on the TM6 in the menu under about this Thermomix. Okay, so if you happen to for whatever reason misplace this, don't stress because it is also in on the machine. Now there is also the basic cookbook that comes with this, and all of the contents of the basic cookbook are also on the machine, and I'll talk through a little bit of that in a little bit of detail. But there's some really amazing bits and pieces to get you started with some basic recipes in the book, so have a bit of a look through there and find some ones that are favorites that you might want to start with. Okay, so while we're waiting for the software to load, I'm going to go ahead and remove. See, there's a plastic covering, and we want to remove that. Now you might be tempted to leave that on there for longevity's sake, but you really want to make sure you take it off so that food doesn't or liquid doesn't get stuck in beside that and confuse the touchpad. Okay, so we take that off, and then we also want to take off, there is protective blue plastic, if you can see here, on the handles. So we want to go ahead, we want to take that blue plastic off. So just get a bit of a start on it on one side and pull them up. We want to make sure we take the blue plastic off both handles on the sides here. Okay, while we're waiting for the machine to go through its software load, I am going to talk to you about some of the accessories. Now this guy here is called the measuring cup. So you can see inside of it. Now you can see it's got like a little pouring spout here. Now this is the part that actually goes into the cover, so it fits into there. And then you've got this little, looks like a bit of a spout. That's going to tell you where most of the steam's coming from when it's exiting the machine. So if you do happen to have it under cupboards, we encourage you to make sure that you're popping this into a position where the steam can come out and not be affecting cupboards that you're underneath. And also if you do happen to be using it in a place where there are cupboards and things over the head, make sure you're turning on your range hood if you can, to make sure you're helping with any excess steam. So that is the measuring cup that fits nicely inside the cover. Now you can see as I first turn the machine on, just bring this a little bit closer, you can see that the arms are locked into place. Okay, so this won't release the arms until the load has properly been done, and then I'll be able to show you how it fits into the lid. So that is the measuring cup. Now It will tell you when it needs the measuring cup in the lid, or sometimes it's called the MC. So if you see MC, that means measuring cup. Okay, the next accessory is this guy, which is called the high heat splash guard. So with the TM6, we have a brand new function called high heat. And it's going to sizzle, so you really can do browning and things like that. So this is only used when the recipe actually calls for it. So the recipe will tell you to use the high heat splash guard when it's needed. So that just sits in on top, and then the arms will come in over the top. So as you can see, it will stop splatter from coming out, but it'll also allow for lots of the steam to escape as well. So the high heat splash guard, and we only use that when we're told to use it in the recipes. Okay. The next one is our simmering basket. So this basket actually fits inside of the machine. My arms have just unlocked, so I'll show you how it fits in there. This guy can be used for lots of different things. Obviously, we're steaming vegetables and whatnot, but also for cooking your rice inside of the basket as well. So it has a rice cooker mode, and that's perfectly useful for this guy here. Now, one of the other accessories is our spatula. Now, the spatula obviously is great for stirring things. The spatula is designed so that when you put it down on a surface, it's actually not going to touch it. Okay, and you can notice it's got this little hook here on the side. So if I take the cover off here, what we do is we take this hook and we insert it into this part of the steaming basket, and you can see that it brings it up. So there's a little divot in there that it fits inside, okay, and that allows you to bring the steaming basket out without having to touch that, obviously, because it's quite warm. Now, you can also use the spatula through the lid to use for stirring. So it might ask you to stir with the use of the spatula whilst it's going, and the spatula can be used for that as well. Okay, the next accessory is called the Varoma. So this will come in your kit. This is a 3-piece setup, and this sits on top of the lid, as you can see here. This is what we're going to be using for steaming larger pieces. So you have the base of the Varoma. As you can see, the steam can come through. So that is called the dish. We then have the tray, which sits inside of that, and we then have the lid. So it might tell you in your recipes to place items in the dish, and then on the tray, and then to cover with the lid. Okay, so the Varoma is what we're going to be using to do lots of steaming for pieces. Now, there are entire collections dedicated to the Varoma, so if that is something that you're interested in, please make sure that you let me know, and I can point you in the direction of those collections. Okay, so once the machine software load has occurred, the first screen that will come up is asking you to choose your language. Now, if you're in Australia, you need to choose English Australian. Obviously, you can have other languages loaded onto the machine, but we know that we've had issues in the past where people have used other languages and then logged into their Cookie account under Australian. It can cause a few issues. So we just want to make sure that we are using English Australia to start with, and it will ask you where you live and Australia. Then it's going to ask you to connect to your network. So what we're going to do is go ahead and plug in our Wi-Fi information so that it can connect, and then it's going to ask us to log into Cookie. Now, if you haven't already established a Cookie login, make sure you go and do it. Okay, you can pop a login through at any time with a free 30-day trial. So we're going to use that information that you've logged into Cookie with to log in to our machine. Okay, once you've successfully logged into your Wi-Fi network and then logged into Cookie, you'll come across some safety screens. Okay, so there's a lot of information in there, which I encourage you to have a bit of a read through. A lot of it is common sense, but it does talk to you about a few little bits and pieces, and probably the most important thing that you need to think about is that when we're cooking, we don't just have this open. Okay, so it's either got the measuring cup in it, or sometimes we sit the simmering basket on it when a recipe asks for, which allows for excess steam to come out, but to be used as a splatter guard. But you just have to make sure that you need to have, as it's the picture down here, you need to have something in there. We don't just leave it uncovered. So have a bit of a scroll of those, have a bit of a read, make sure you're paying attention to them. And then we'll just keep scooching through. It talks about the high heat guard and how we only use that when it tells us to. Make sure that we're only filling to just below the maximum line. So the max capacity in here is 2.2 litres, and it will show you that inside. Hopefully you can see the indentations along here, and there is one that says max, and the max capacity in there is 2.2 litres. So make sure we're not overfilling that. Sometimes when you might be cooking some rice or other things that have excess starch in them, you may find, say if you've got the simmering basket on, you may find that things bubble up and then bubble back down. And that's quite often just from excess starch, which is totally fine, and it will go back down. As long as you haven't overfilled it, then that should be totally fine. Okay, now let's talk about the bowl. So this is the bowl. Obviously, as you can see in here is the blades or the knife. Okay, now and you can see on the bottom the pins. So super important to know, just make sure these are nice and dry before you put them in there. Okay, so make sure the pins are nice and dry. The bowl comes apart. You can see here, there's a little symbol on there which has got the little sizzle marks on it. That's what I use to help me remember which way to put the bowl on and off, because it tells me which direction to turn this base to. So basically this part here is going to turn independently of the bowl. So when it's new, it can be a little on the firm side, so we give it a turn, and then the base comes off. And then when we take the knife out, we just reach in and we grab it by the little knobbly bit on top. So that's what it looks like. The whole thing comes apart to clean. It absolutely can go into the dishwasher, the bowl, the knife, and the base. And then to reassemble them, you just pop the knife back into the center, again, just by holding on to the little knobbly part. You can tell this is a new one. It's nice and stiff. And then we just reverse. We grab this, pop it on the base over to the side where the little pictogram is, and then give it a turn. Oh, you have to make sure that it's on. Otherwise, there we go. It's nice and firm, so it's properly on. Okay. As I said, make sure the pins are dry before you pop it in there. And this is super important, especially if you're going to do things like make a smoothie, etc. Because if you don't have this fixed in properly and you pop it in there and you pop liquid into it, the liquid can leak down into below. So just make sure the base is on it really nice and properly. And that's one of the safety instructions that's on here as well. Alrighty. So once we move on here, it does give you a final one which talks a little bit again about the measuring cup and how that needs to fit in snugly, and it does ask you to acknowledge that you understood that. So it asks you to say, yes, I've read that and I understand, and there is a button that says find out more if you need to know more. Now, what will normally happen when you turn your Thermomix on for the first time is that it will need to do a software update. So it says a new version is available. Do you want to update now? We hit update now, and then it's going to go ahead and do that update. So Verwalk quite often will do software updates when they come out with new modes or new fixes or little bits and pieces. They will do new software uploads. So you might find if you've been using the machine, but you maybe haven't used it for a week, you go to turn it on and it will tell you that it needs to do an update. So we just go right ahead, set it to do its update, and it will tell us the time remaining. This one says it's got about 3 minutes remaining, which is quite reasonable. So we're just going to wait for that to update before we proceed. Okay, once the update is done, it will come up with a screen where it just asks you whether you want to give feedback through the machine to the company. That's totally up to you. Just go ahead and make your selection, and then you come to the home screen. Okay, so on the home screen, we've got 3 main dials. We've got time, we've got temperature, and we've got speed. Okay, so to select the one that we want to work with, make sure we touch it. This one here is the time, and we use the selector over here to increase and decrease the time. Okay, so let's say we set that at 3 seconds. The next one, touch this and you'll see it goes larger, so we know we're working with that. This is the temperature. Now the temperature goes from about 35 all the way up over here to 120 degrees, and then the very, very top temperature is Varoma. Now obviously Varoma is what sits on the machine and does the steaming, and it will tell you in the recipe when you need Varoma. So if you're looking for the Varoma, it's all the way up the top. Okay, so we set the temperature to where we want, and then the next one is the speed. So the speed goes from a 0.5 all the way up to a 10. So the first one, if we pop on here, you'll see it comes up with a picture of a spoon, and that's just a really, really, really quick stir. Now, that sound. Let's go ahead and change our sound, because after a while that's going to drive you bonkers. So if we go into the settings in here and we go to sounds, then what we want to do, the duration is currently set at unlimited, so it'll just keep going until you press a button. Let's bring that all the way down. 10 seconds is the smallest amount you can have. Okay, you can also change the sounds in there. So time, temperature, and speed. Okay, now if you need to do a reverse, so sometimes it's in reverse, say if you've got meat in there and you don't want to be chopping things up, all you do is you just press the little picture of the knife blade down here and you'll see that you get a green reverse circle on there. Okay, so that lets us know that it's going into reverse, and to change it you just press it again and it will tell you when reverse is enabled and then when you've disabled reverse again. So time, temperature, and speed. Okay, if we're on the home screen and we've got our time, temperature, and speed, if we swipe to the left one screen, then we get the modes screen. I'm going to quickly talk you through each of these modes. Now you can change how this is set up and where they go to, and that's totally up to you if you want to go ahead and change them. Maybe you want to put the ones that you use most frequently up the top. Just get to know which ones you're going to be needing. Now the first one that comes up here is scales. So we press on scales and you'll see it's come up and there's a tear button. So if you're wanting to add ingredients one after the other and you want to zero wise after that, you can. You see this has come up as a zero, as a -1. Every now and then you might get it come up with a -1, which is totally normal. But if you do other things like you move the cord around or somebody's leaning on the machine, you'll see that it goes up and down. If you just want to go back to 0, you just hit the tear button and then we're at 0. Now it's important to have the machine, as I said, on a flat level surface because there are scales, there's scales built in and they're through the feet. So you need to make sure you have it on a nice flat level surface. Okay, so that is the scales. The next one over is the chop menu. Okay, now this is a new menu with the TM6. It goes ahead and you can tell it what it is that you're wanting to chop up, though, things like apples, beef, cheese, crushed ice, some pulses, onion, peppercorns, all sorts of things. So you can go ahead and choose what it is that you're going to chop up from there. However, that information is also in your basic cookbook. Right towards the back, under resources, there's a chopping function and it tells you what it is that you're chopping, the size or the amount, and then how long and what speed you should be chopping that on. But they've actually incorporated that into the machine now on the TM6, so that is the chop function. Very, very handy. The next one over is the dough function, and that's symbolized by the piece of wheat. So if you're wanting to make dough yourself and you're not using a guided recipe through Cookie Dough, then you can go ahead and use this. This is an interval, sometimes called the interval, so it pulses. So you'll notice as soon as this starts, you'll probably hear the way that it operates. So it starts and it stops. Okay, so that is the dough function. You can make some beautiful doughs with this. All right, let's go across again. The next one is the turbo function. Now, turbo is the highest speed that this can go, and straight away to there. Now, what you need to know is we can't even access the turbo mode unless we have the cover on and the measuring cup in place. So we hit turbo. So we're going to be using the turbo mode if you want to do crushing of ice, mincing of meats, things that require immediate high speed. Now, it asks me here what I'd like to set it to. So you can change it to between 1/2 and 1 second. And then over here, you've got the little thing that looks like a bit of swirly wind. Go ahead and all you need to do is change that and you can hear it go straight immediately to the very highest speed. So as I said, you won't even be able to access the turbo mode without the lid engaged and the measuring cup on. Okay, so once we've gone ahead and removed the measuring cup, we can go back into other modes. Now this has a pre-clean mode, so this will help to clean itself. How amazing is that? We hit pre-clean and it tells you a bit about it. So some of these will have information in the menu the first time that you open them. There is a don't show this message again down the bottom. So when you're happy that you know what's inside of that menu, you can select on that. So it says a maximum of 1 litre of water and a little drop of dishwashing liquid, or 50 grams of vinegar added to it. Okay, so I'm going to hit don't show this again. Now my options are short, dough, universal, fat or caramel, and browning. So if you have been using it to do caramel or browning, those sorts of things, I would definitely recommend the vinegar wash. So you're going to pop in 50 grams of vinegar and then 950 grams of water, and that's going to help to break up the fats and the sugars that are in that as well. So for the others, I would just do 1 drop of dishwashing liquid up to 1 litre of water, and what it does is it assesses the bowl and how dirty it is, and then it will amend the amount of time that it needs to clean it. So it's not going to clean perfectly, as in you can then go ahead and use it, especially if you've got bits and pieces around the rim. So just give it a little bit of a scrub and it'll be perfectly fine to go, or stick it into the dishwasher. This is just to help get that extra stuff off there. So that's a really, really handy function to have. So let's go back here. So that's pre-clean. The next one is the blend function. So this is for your soups, your smoothies, and your purees. So your soups, your purees, and your smoothies. It's just like the most powerful blender getting around, and it's perfect. The egg boiler mode is the next one. Now, egg boiler is a brand new, with even since we've had the first TM6, it's even newer again. So it's only come out fairly recently. It says to place up to 6 eggs from the fridge into the mixing bowl without the simmering basket, and then you pop your water in up to the 1 litre, and you tell it how you would like your eggs. So soft, medium, medium hard, and hard, and it then knows exactly how long to cook it for. So that is pretty handy, the egg mode. Okay, we then have the kettle mode. So obviously you can use it as a kettle, not just for water, but for other liquids and drinks as well. And you can set the temperature. So if you like to have your tea at a particular temperature, you can go right ahead and set that, and it will bring that up to speed. Some people like to use this if they're making their doughs and they want a particular room temperature water to add into their dough mixture. So that's very handy for that. The warm-up function is for reheating, like you might want to reheat some custard or something with a bit of liquid in it, stews, that sort of thing. You can use the reheat, the warm-up mode for that. We then have the thicken mode. Now the thicken mode is if you're doing things like hollandaise or sauces or custards, that sort of thing, and that's where you might use the butterfly whisk. So this comes with your machine, and it has on here speed max of 4. So we're not using this at higher than a speed of 4. This simply slips on top of the knife in there. So I'll show you what I mean by that. So you see the blade there? We're going to come just to the left of the blade, the highest blade, and we're going to pop it in there like that. And that is the butterfly whisk in place to use for the thicken. So it makes amazing sauces and makes them beautiful and thick. Okay, coming down, we then have the rice cooker mode. So obviously you can cook rice in here, which is super, super handy. You don't have to stand and stir it over the stove or anything like that. Put it in, set it, walk away, and it's going to make beautiful rice. Now, again, when you're clicking on there, it will ask you, it will weigh, and it knows how much rice there is, so it knows exactly how long it's going to take. Fermentation mode. So if you want to do things like make your own pot set yogurt, that sort of stuff, it tells you here things that you can ferment up to 12 hours with a temperature between 37 and 70 degrees. So you can do ferment yogurt or prove yeast dough, those sorts of things in the Varoma dish. Lots of really helpful information in there. And if you're wanting to do fermenting, there's lots of great recipes on Cookie Do as well. All right, then we have a slow cook function. So you can set this to slow cook for up to 8 hours. So some of the recipes you find might ask you to do the prep, and then it might say slow cook for 4 hours, 6 hours, whatever. So you can use this as a slow cook. You can also sous vide with this. Okay, sous vide, if you haven't seen before, that's when you're cooking things in essentially like a water bath and bringing things up to temperature. A lot of chefs tend to use sous vide, especially if they've they might have grilled their steak beforehand, then they'll put it in a sous vide bag, and then when it's needed, they'll bring it up to temperature. Peeler mode. Now this might be a handy bit of kit for you to get your hands on. You can get them through the mix shop, but it is also a Host reward. So that's one of the great things about having a cooking experience. You get to see all of the features and get to learn how to use your machine and fall in love with it all over. And then you also get to get some free gifts. So this is the peeler. This fits directly over the top of the knife in here. So we'll take the butterfly whisk out. That sits over the top and acts as a peeler, but also what's called a blade guard. So for some things like some of the slow cooking or the sous vide mode, you might want to use a blade guard, which means that the materials in there aren't actually coming into contact with the knife, but the motor is still running and mixing the water around. So the peeler goes directly in the top here, straight over the top of the knife, and then it can peel your potatoes and those sorts of things. We then have a grating mode. Now, I don't have the grater here to show you because it has been out of stock for a while, but there is a grater attachment that sits on the top and you can feed things into it and it will grate directly into the base. So definitely keep an eye out for when that might be available in the mix shop. And the same with the slicing mode. That works with the grater and slicer attachment that goes onto the top. Alrighty guys, those are all of the modes that are available on the mode page, and the more that you use them, obviously the more that you'll become familiar with them, and you'll find the ones that you use the most, and maybe you want to pop those up the top of the page. Okay, now we're at the home menu again, and at this time if we swipe to the right, this will bring up your Cookie Do menu. Now I'm going to do a separate video all about how to use Cookie Do, but as I said, you can join and have a subscription for free for 30 days before you even get your machine, and you can have a really good play around there with how to use it and how to get the most out of it. There's obviously a search function, so you can search by things like an ingredient. So if you know you have something in the fridge that you're wanting to use up, you can search by ingredient. You can search by how long it's going to take to prep or how long it's going to take to cook. Over in the menu over to the side here, we've got My Recipes, which will show you things that you've created and imported. My Week, so if you're going ahead and planning your week out and you know exactly what day you're wanting to cook things out, you can plan all of that. Recently Cooked, so if you've got some favorites that you're cooking all the time, click on Recently Cooked and it will show you those bits and pieces. Then we've got some settings and then some more help and safety instructions. So that is the Cookie Do menu. That is one swipe to the right. All right, guys, thank you so much for joining me. I can't wait to see you at your cooking experience. Make sure you have a think about who you might want to invite, some friends that maybe either have theirs and already love it, or they want to see people that don't have one, or they don't even know what Thermomix is. Ask them to come along and have a bit of a look. It benefits you because you get to know and love your machine and know how to get the most bang for your buck, and it benefits us as well because we get to meet new customers. If there's anything I can help you with, please reach out and let me know. And thank you so much, and I will see you on the next video. Bye, guys.